Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Intelligent Inbound podcast brought to you by SmartBug Media. I'm your host, Jen Spencer, and today I'm speaking with Scott Salkin, who is Senior Vice President and General Manager of Gainsight's Customer Success Platform. Welcome, Scott.
It's a mouthful, huh? It's a mouthful. A
I
lot
know.
to say. Thank you. No, good to be here. Good to see you. Excited to be here.
Well, I think we need to. I want to clarify something here because you oversee Gainsight's customer success platform,
Yeah,
and I've grown up knowing Gainsight as being a customer success platform.
yeah,
So
yeah,
can we back up for a minute and can you kind of give us the lay of the land of what Gainsight looks like today and what different products you have?
yeah. No, absolutely. It's a good place to start. Yeah, Gainsight kind of is like the Kleenex of customer success. I mean, we have grown up as synonymous with customer success. You know, helped move forward the brand or the kind of the category, the profession, the community, everything around customer success. But as customer success and delivering, a value and outcomes and results to customers has kind of expanded into becoming more. We've kind of expanded our own outlook on it too, and actually acquired a few other companies along with it. One being a company very much focused on product experience. You know, one thing the way we look at things is that it's very hard to have customer success without user success. And so, one company we acquired, they were called Extrinsic, now it's called Gainsight PX, very much focuses on, not only all the, analytics and data around how your users and customers are using your products, but also things like in-app engagement, which we'll talk more about as we talk about like digital customer success and stuff like that. And then another one, which is really important, and we can talk about more here as we talk about inbound and marketing and everything else, is community and the impact that community has around customer success also. So another company we acquired that just this past year is called Insighted. Now Gainsight, it's a community tool. And community, I think folks, think of it first as from a long time ago as like used to think of community as your forum, but now community is so much more. It's where you get all your product feedback, where your customers engage, where your customers, work with support, where they provide advice to each other, where they become advocates, and all that can relate back to things like health score, digital customer success, and all these other areas. So we've become a lot more than just a customer success platform. There's a lot of, I think, language out there now, customer success tools or tools just for CSMs. And customer success has expanded well beyond that now to the realm of kind of the entire business, CMOs, CROs. Everybody cares about the health and the value provided to their customers.
Awesome. And thank you for kind of resetting that and giving us a
Yeah,
kind of a clear view of what Gainsight is. And I think what you're sharing, what you're explaining makes a ton of sense. We've been talking about community on this podcast with so many different individuals and the power of community and the idea of like influencers that are all around you and how do you
yeah,
enable them from like a marketing and sales and success perspective. So I think it makes perfect sense, given Gainsight's expertise. That's really cool. Very reminiscent to me of
yeah. Uh,
HubSpot, right? Like with inbound,
well,
but they do so much more than just the like attracting of the lead, right?
yeah. I mean, it's speaking of HubSpot inbound. I'm trying to actually look for it on my screen right now, but there's a post from Darmish this morning that I shared with our entire leadership team around, he posted something around how every software platform as they scale or every software tool as they scale eventually becomes a platform, and every
Hmm.
platform eventually becomes a community, and the platform with the strongest community is eventually the one that wins. And so community and platform and software tools and all these other things, especially in this market where everything is around doing more with less, around efficiency, around leveraging the power of your community and your advocates, it's really, really important. So yeah, so that's where I think it all fits together. And I know it's a big topic even at Inbound this year, the conference. So yeah,
Yeah,
community's a big deal right now.
absolutely, absolutely. I, one of the things that I've always loved about the inbound methodology is that it embraces, like it in theory, right? It embraces this very holistic approach to serving a customer from long before you even know each other, right? All the way through all the ways they interact with your brand. And then, if people are doing it really well, even after they leave you, right? What is that relationship like? And that's what I subscribe to, what I believe in theory. But from your perspective, what do you see happening in practice? Like once someone becomes a customer of a company, like what's going on, and what are some recommendations that you have for business leaders, customer success leaders, but also revenue leaders, right? That are
Yeah.
looking kind of full, like they're looking big picture at like hitting revenue targets. Like what are you seeing in the way that they're operating? Are they changing? Are they subscribing to this idea? You've got your
Yeah, I
finger on the
think,
pulse of this so much more.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I think it's just, you've got to just continuously think about it as this flywheel, this infinite loop that you're trying to build and that you're trying to accelerate and expand your customers. And inbound, it's if you look at inbound, it's like inbound never ends. It's I almost, kind of I think a lot of folks think about inbound sometimes, and this feels like, okay, they get to a point, they become, if we go back to marketing terminology, they become an AQL or an MQL, whatever it is, and it's kind of like, okay, then it's over. Let's hand it over to sales. But that doesn't happen anymore, and especially around, all the different tools, resources, and the integrations and things you have working together, whether you're using Drift or HubSpot, or how those then work with Salesforce, which then ties into Gainsight, which then ties into Zendesk, which then ties into your ERP tool, which then ties into everything else. It's all like this one big integrated piece that you have, as kind of like the core of your business. And how do all those things work together to make your company more efficient? And so now that brings all these teams together as well. All these silos have to be broken down between sales, marketing, customer success, product, finance, everything else. And so companies, I think, have, one of the things around this and around kind of how things have continued to progress is that all these silos are starting to be broken down more, and companies are realizing that they have to be working together more, their tools have to be working together more, and that kind of like the whole methodology originally around inbound, which is very much tied to content and thought leadership and being more of an advisor slash consultant throughout the entire kind of process of working with your prospect, now has to extend throughout the entire life of a customer, because that prospect who then goes signs a customer, who signs as a contract with a customer, is now your prospect forever. And again, it goes back to kind of like what Darmish was saying in that quote around platform. Every company that eventually begins to scale has one more product to sell, and you add more product, whether that's by creating more, by acquisition, however you do it, and or whether it's by selling more licenses and selling more features, or the North Star metric for your company these days, especially in today's economy, is all around net retention. And best in class
Mhm.
net retention, let's just say, is 120, 130, 150%. Then you've got to continuously be working with those customers to continue to grow them. So inbound, that whole approach around inbound kind of never really stops, and it's a matter of how you apply it then to everything else that you're doing. And it has to apply to the sales you're doing, the customer success platform that you're using, the community tools that you're using. So I think that's kind of a really big piece of it, is how you're kind of starting to think about this as just an infinite loop. And I've seen some companies that really do it well, and some frameworks of companies that do it well. I mean, even Cisco, for example, with their whole partner program, and they have this kind of like racetrack thing they built that talks about kind
Mhm.
of like this infinite loop around, kind of looks like an infinity symbol around continuously to get to grow your customers. And there's some great examples of how companies do that out there, but it's a customer value right now is the number one thing that you've got to be delivering, and it goes through that entire customer journey and life cycle.
Yeah, and it's so interesting to me right now, like something that's very topical for me. We sell to mainly marketers, right? Other business leaders
Yeah,
too, but people who tend to come to us, who require our services, who have a pain, are our marketing leaders. And I'm finding even like our own inbound sort of funnel, right? Or flywheel even, is there are parts of it that are a little wobbly because
yeah,
we're not seeing people remain in roles for as long as they used to. So, okay, let's put aside the fact that people
yeah,
used to remain in a role or with a company, right? Maybe they get promoted, but they're remain with a company for like 10 or 15 years. Okay, that's being long gone, right?
yeah,
But then it was like 3 to 5 years. Okay, that makes sense. Now, I mean, sort of like it definitely got accelerated by the pandemic, and then by kind of a lack of talent, and the kind of some surges that we saw coming out of the pandemic in 2021. But it's not uncommon for individuals to be at a company a year or even just less than a year, like 10 to 12 months
Yeah.
before moving on to this next role. And so what we'll have people that are coming in and say, "Oh, yeah, I'm a past customer of yours, but now I'm at this other company and I want
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
re-engage." Right?
Yeah.
And I'm looking at our technology stack and I'm looking at the way we work and going, whoa, we got to make sure we're opening ourselves up to this and taking
Yeah.
advantage of these opportunities. I'm just curious, like, are you seeing anything similar? Like,
Yeah.
any
I mean, we have a
recommendation?
whole yeah. I mean, internally for us, I mean, we see that all the time, especially
Yeah.
in a like career path and profession like customer success that has matured as much as it has over the last, let's just say, like 6 to 8 years, where a lot of today's customer success leaders or next gen of customer success leaders were CSMs several years ago, or they were CS leaders at earlier stage companies who are now graduated to larger, bigger enterprises. So we see a ton of that, especially during, like you said, the pandemic. And I would even position it as the pandemic, especially after, like the series of low interest rates and lots of cash available, 50x valuations, tons of fundraising. It's just little ado about the
Mhm.
pandemic. It's just the economic environment that was created around that. So people started bouncing around and going to different jobs and doing all these different things. And so we created all these programs that would help us, and even tools within Gainsight actually that help kind of like track track the champions and track your advocates in terms of where they go and how they move from company to company. We even do things like we have automated programs when someone goes from one company to the other, takes a new job, that will send someone like a welcome gift and congratulatory gift when they go and they get their new role in a new company. So there are things you can do like that. But there's just but I also think like I'll tell you, I think that's going to slow down a little bit now. I think that's going to slow down now. People are going
Yeah.
to have to settle into to roles a little bit more, and you're going to see that kind of adjust a little bit with kind of the new way the economy is. But I also think that it goes back to, even if it does slow down a little bit, there's always going to be that change in tenure. There's always going to be that advancement within organizations, that people take on new roles and do new things, and you've got to make sure that, again, it goes back to you know and we used to, I won't go back in time to other things, but like, it's not just the company, it's the people. And you've got to build,
Yeah.
so much what Gainsight says, like it's about winning. Like our whole mantra here is about winning in business while being human first. Well, it's about customer success as much as it's about the data and the value and all the outcomes and everything else. It's about the relationships, and it's about the people that you're engaging with on a regular basis, and how you're helping them grow their career and their job. And when they're held accountable at the next level up, you're making them successful, and making them part of a community of other folks where they can be learning from. So again, not to keep beating on the horse of the community, but like it's a big piece of it.
Yeah, I mean, I look at it like, even if you as a business leader aren't ready to go all in on the idea of a community and make a big investment there, if that for for whatever reason, at the very least, consider it your safety net, right? Because
Yeah, yeah,
it's you
yeah.
got to do something, right? And I Jake Randall from Common Room was on the podcast not long ago, and he said, like, everyone has a community. Like,
It's true. Yeah.
whether you like it or not,
Are you
it's just
leveraging
there.
it?
It's like,
Yeah,
yeah, are you listening? Right? Are you listening to that
yeah.
community? Like, are you plugging into it? So,
Yeah, no, it's so
um,
true. It's so important. I mean, it's your customers. It's the folks where it's where the worst thing you're possibly doing is having a community and not nurturing it, and kind of
yeah,
letting what do you want to call it, like a rogue community in a way.
yeah, 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 and harnessing it, taking advantage of that. Oh, yeah, it'd be like
Yeah,
traffic coming to your website that you're not working to convert. Um,
yeah,
Okay, so another question for you. This is a little painful, but I'm pretty try to be pretty plugged in, pretty dialed in to what's happening, especially in the SaaS community, which is kind of where I came from before I came over to SmartBug. As you know, we used to work together,
yeah,
but. I'm seeing a lot of concern over potential churn numbers, a lot of doom and gloom, right? Some of it's a little bit
yeah,
of out there, right? Like, come on, you
yeah,
guys, like, not scare tactics, but concern over like expectations around churn numbers in the tech space. in getting into Q1 of 2023. Interesting. Like I'm seeing that specifically over and over again.
Yeah.
And I guess, what do you think of that? And also, if someone's listening to this right now in December of 2022 when we're recording it, is it too late for those CS leaders?
Yeah.
Like, I'm asking you to tap into your crystal ball here, which is totally unfair, but
Mhm.
but what do you think is going to happen here in the new year, and what can we do now to set
Yeah.
ourselves up for success?
I don't think well, it's not too late. I don't think churn has to be a concern. I think what has to be a concern is the value that you're providing to your customers and
Mhm.
understanding very clearly and having a plan in place to be able to go deliver the value and outcomes that were promised or that your brand kind of sits on in terms of the expectations that you set during the sales process. And so I think companies really have to double down on that because if you're anything
Yeah.
like our CFO or any of the other couple hundred CFOs I've talked to this year or other folks that are out there in SaaS or any kind of business, you're looking at all the different tools you have right now, all the
Mhm.
different all the different software tools and everything you have out there, and you're stack ranking them and you're looking at all the unutilized licensing that you have. And maybe it's not just unexpected churn, maybe it's just downsell. And maybe it's just, it's eliminating unused licensing and things like that. Companies are looking to cut the fat out of their business right now.
Yeah.
And so I think it's really important to get a really clear understanding of utilization rates of your tool, of what features are driving the most adoption or driving the most retention, and doubling down on doing things like in-app engagements or marketing campaigns or whatever it takes with your CSMs, building plays and playbooks to be able to get your customers to adopt those tools. So I don't ever think it's too late to get a
Yeah.
hold on these things, but I think there's the fundamental playbooks that need to be in place for your business to go and be able to execute on customer success. I see more companies right now where they're focusing more is, they see less net new revenue coming in next year and are doubling down on, since that's happening, we need to make sure that our existing customers stay in place. The least,
Mhm.
the least efficient thing you can do as a business is not only, just, lose efficiency around sales, but it's actually lose efficiency around customer success, because then
Mhm.
your upsells and expansions and all those other areas start increasing, and your CAC starts growing as well, because who are your least expensive customers to sell to? Well, they're your existing ones. So CAC starts going up, other expenses start going up. So you really got to be able to focus in and zero in on how do we take care of our existing customers if net new revenue is going to slow down, which everyone's seeing it across the board. I mean, Salesforce issued their earnings report last week. Mark Benioff said we can't even issue a forecast for next year yet because we have no idea what's happening. And that does not happen in today's market, but this is the reality right now. It's hard to forecast. It's hard to understand what's going on. And so companies have to understand and be ready to prepare for that. And it's never too late. It's not too late to be able to start thinking about these things.
The customer success sort of playbook, right? The not just the onboarding, but the overall the experience that you have that a buyer has when they're leveraging certain software platform. I we've bought a lot of software for ourselves at
Yeah.
SmartBug, and I've bought over the course of my career, and very, very few of those purchases, very, very few companies take time to walk me through how we're actually using the software,
Yeah.
where we're underusing it, right? Looking for, hey, understanding your business, right? And looking at things through the lens of your business, Madam Customer, right? Here are the 2 or 3 things I think you should use that you're already paying for. And here's some help on like getting you to use it, right? Because often it's just there's only so many hours in the day. Right.
Yeah.
Or here's a partner maybe we recommend that we kind of pull in to help you leverage this. And here's the kind of return I think you can get. I mean, honestly, Scott, like over like 7 or 8-ish years of buying software, where I'm like in the main like decision maker, I think maybe 2 companies have ever really done that well.
God. Yeah.
Like, is
Yeah.
that
It's a
for me? Like,
struggle.
is that normal? Like,
Yeah.
It's hard for me to say whether that's normal. I mean, it's disappointing. I mean, I think um, that it's hard for companies these days um, I think a lot of companies are still set in the mindset where, throw bodies at sales because net new revenue is what drives the company.
Mhm.
But that mindset has started to shift, especially as,
Yeah.
net retention and all those other types of metrics, become more important to enterprise valuation and to the valuation of the company. And as that happens, folks start thinking about, all right, we need more CSMs. We have to spend more times with customers. But I also think, like, it's every single company, no matter what it is, whether it's sales, whether it's marketing, whether it's customer success, is trying to drive more efficiency in the business. So I think it's also, it's not just a matter of putting bodies in front of people. It's also a matter of doing things, again, kind of going back to the inbound way of doing things, is doing things better from a digital perspective and trying to do more with less.
Mhm.
So, it's a matter of, again, like leveraging and being able to build the right tools and resources to be able to point folks like you towards connecting with other
Mhm.
community members. It may just not be the other, the CSM's job to be able to do that. It may be the CSM's job to be the consultant, or, the
Mhm.
connector for you, who's pointing you towards all the right tools and resources, to be able to learn the things that they need to. Now, when it comes to really understanding your business, that should be happening across the board, from the sales cycle
Mhm.
to how that's transitioned over the CSM. But there's also a lot of product-led growth companies right now who, they're, having a CSM in place or an account executive in place isn't part of their business model. And so, the buyer never even talks to a person. And so even in those types of scenarios, the first line of customer success for those types of companies is not a person, it's the product. And so that's where it
Mhm.
gets back to, even, leveraging tools like in-app engagements and doing things like, I remember back in our old days at Allbound, where we worked together. And one of the first things that we did to extend the value of our CSMs was we, bought a tool to, add um, a whole user guide and user guide experience into our software platform, and add all these in-app engagements and guide folks through how to use the tool without having to, engage the CSM. And sometimes we would, add custom pieces in for customers, because we knew they had specific needs or specific scenarios. So we would build out, custom videos for them, or certain little things that we did to be able to help them better leverage the tool, understanding that we had to control our own costs too. So there's a really fine balance. That balance is going to get even, more scrutinized over the next couple of years as more companies are pushed towards profitability. But that's where I think it's up to companies to be able to build the right balance of in-person, high touch type of customer success activities with the customers who need it, with the type of digital led motions, pooled models, sometimes with pooled customer success, in-app engagements, and other types of resources to make sure companies, and customers like yourselves, like me for some tools, have the resources that they need. But I also think it's up to companies to be able to clearly articulate those throughout the sales cycle of what that's going to actually look like, and
Mhm.
set the right type of expectation. Because oftentimes, poor customer success, I hate to say it, is the result of wrong expectation setting throughout the sales cycle.
Yes, and I wanna talk about there's a couple of things I wanna make sure we talk about here that you just brought
Yeah.
up. So, one is the idea of, like, of doing more with less, and, like, everyone I speak to
Mhm.
lately is trying to do more with less, and I understand, but but also this idea of friction between, like, sales and customer success is stronger than ever before, right?
Mm.
And being where I get to sit, being a partner of many different types of technology companies, right? We have two kind of tier one partners, HubSpot and Klaviyo, and then we've got about 40 other kind of tier twos that we work with. And what I'm seeing in this economy, in this market, and the stress that these technology companies are under, I'm seeing some pretty bad behavior, right, on sales, where I'm seeing sales reps be really forcing technology down customers' throats that they don't necessarily
Yeah.
need, or
Yeah.
right, like too much, right? Like,
Yeah.
why not get? I mean, interestingly, I was watching an old episode of Arrested Development the other day, and it's like the upselling, right? Of like, okay, you don't. Do you
Yeah.
really need this? Oh, maybe you want this just so you have it, and I'm going to give you this great discount for the first
Yeah.
year, and then if they churn, right, that's next year person's problems. Um, this friction between sales and customer success, is it just a thing we're all just going to live through right now, or are you seeing anyone
Yeah.
who's handling it really well? Because I get it, like from a
Yeah.
salesperson's perspective, like I get it, you got to hit a number.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think it's, it's hard for me to say that it's friction, and I think it's more so, like there's no start and end to, companies having just like, one piece, one part of the journey just has a hard, like, line stop and the next part starts,
Yeah.
it's again goes back to kind of like we were talking about a little bit at the beginning. It's like there's just one continuous cycle of customers and companies working together. And some companies have more of an account management model where sales owns the relationship throughout, and they're compensated based on what a renewal is like and whether or not the customer renews, and do they renew at a flat rate, do they downsell, or do they grow. And a lot of that depends on the value and the alignment between that account manager and that rep, and also a customer success team, let's just say, for example. I also think it's a matter of where your customer success organization aligns. Some of them have the CCO aligning alongside the CRO into the CEO, which can be a really good model for some companies. Other ones have a VP of customer success, or sometimes even the CCO rolling into a chief growth officer, chief sales officer, chief revenue officer, whatever it is. And that could be an okay model depending on what your business looks like. Ultimately, I think it has to be aligned on metrics. There's things that you need to align on around comp plans and everything else. But I think, again, it goes back to, if you've got to make sure that, listen, everyone's under pressure to go and drive revenue right now. And every rep is
Yeah.
under pressure to go and, deliver on their number to hit their goals. It's how they earn their money. It's how they put food on their table. And so we're going to do the things that they need to do oftentimes to close a deal. But if you are going through that sales process, and again being able to clearly articulate the value and and understand the outcome that you're going to try to achieve for that customer, then you can articulate that to your customer success team, and it's their job to then help them deliver on that. If that is not happening during the sales cycle, but a customer is going and buying anyways, it's hard. It's hard to do that when you don't have really clear values or outcomes articulated and developed for the customer. And so you've got to think how that then applies to churn and to GRR and to
Mhm.
the stock option that you're sitting there hoping is going to vest and help make you money one day, because it's going to be harder for your organization. And I think every company has to learn sometimes when it's right to say no, because if you don't, then you're going to have those numbers go up. And so for some companies it's too small of a customer. For some companies
Mhm.
it's a customer who's in the wrong vertical market.
Yeah.
That it's really hard for them to deliver value. And so, you've got to be able to focus on the right ones, and then really be able to go master that, and then go be able to sell more into that right customer. And when you don't do that, it's gonna impact your business the wrong way. So it's not just that sales and customer success relationship. It's that if we don't provide the right value for this specific type of customer, how does that impact the rest of our business? Because it's going to make,
Mhm.
it's going to, again, go impact the narrative out in the market around us, which is going to make our CAC go up, which is going to impact how much we have to spend on marketing to be able to go land a customer, which is going to impact everything else in the entire company. So I think you just have to look at it as that entirety of that whole of how the business aligns, right? Who's the right customer and what can we do for them?
Yeah, it can become a vicious cycle, right? If you're
Yeah,
not thinking
yeah,
about that holistic approach.
yeah,
Um, okay, so we touched on it a little bit. Let's return to it because I love tactics. So doing kind of more with less, digital solutions
yeah.
allow us to do that for sure. Everything from I got marketing people on like our internal marketing team, playing with AI to draft social media posts right
Oh,
now,
I
right?
know, I know.
Because they're just like, wow, like look, it
Yeah,
just pumped out like
Just writes
3
it for
things.
me. Yeah.
I know, it's like amazing. What's going on,
Yeah.
right? So we're all looking to do that. What do you think? What are some of the tactics or tips or tools that you think business
Yeah.
leaders should be looking at in the CS space?
Well, I absolutely think everything right now is about efficiency, doing more with less, durability for your company, doing,
Mhm.
driving efficient growth. There's all kinds of charts out there now from analysts in consulting firms, McKinsey, Bain, you name it, that shows, the name of the game anymore isn't all out growth, it's efficient growth and how you're able to grow your company while actually having a real path to profitability. Imagine that. And so companies are needing to invest in tools to be able to help them be more efficient in their business, and that applies really heavily to customer success. And so, I think it's I know in the marketing side of things and the sales side of things, there's marketing automation that's stretched really heavily into the customer success side of things. We do things that we have a tool called Journey Orchestrator that a lot of companies use, similar to our marketing automation tool, but leverages things like health scores, customer usage, product adoption, all kinds of other analytics that people pump into Gainsight to be able to then push AI and then deliver automation out to the customer base to be able to drive them to, again, the right features that drive stickiness, that drive retention, things like that. So really being able to drive these journeys automatically for your existing customers using tools like Gainsight or others that are out there, and then tying in things like in-app engagements. So being able to make
Mhm.
that journey tied into how you're engaging your customers in the app. That doesn't just mean like a little question mark help button that they can pop up and actually be able to access a couple of videos of how to do things. That means in-app guides, things that pop up to be able to explain to a customer, here's what you should be doing here when this happens. And so you see them in a lot of tools, but you also see a lot of folks who don't leverage those types of things. So in-app engagement is really important. Leveraging, again, those types of tools and tying them back into customer success. Then I'll just go back into community. I mean, community is so critically important. Being able to leverage your customer base, be able to leverage your advocates, being able to get product feedback, being able to tie all of those different things back into a community type of environment that then goes back to let you leverage advocacy and emotion and different things, sentiment analysis, things like that, back into your customer health score, back into how you deliver automated communication to your customers. Those are the things that companies start really being able to see, results in terms of efficiency. Because ultimately, like tools like Gainsight and other ones should be about, I hate to say it, but like helping you, offset those 5 CSMs you may need to hire next year and maybe hire 2 or 3 who can be doing more high value things like getting on the phone with Jen and talking her through specific things she wants to do for her company, while the low hanging fruit is automated away. And so those are
Yeah.
some of the things that we need to really be able to help companies really do more of these days. And that's where, you hear a lot about digital customer success and helping companies manage, their long tail customers and things like that.
I love that. I love that. And I think I would rather, you know, I think about like headcount planning, right? And you talked
Oh
about like
yeah.
the 5, 2, what have you, right? But what so much more tremendous value that I get as a customer to be able to talk to someone who has the time and headspace, right?
Yeah.
Who probably can't take on as many customers, as many accounts, right? But to really understand my business and how whatever the solution
Yeah.
is that I'm using of theirs, how it's helping me drive my business forward,
Yeah.
then and then rely on a knowledge base or an AI and other kind of online tools to help me solve my problems. Because guess what? We all know how to use Google and ask like, how do I
Yeah.
do
Yeah.
XYZ?
Yeah. I'll just add one other piece onto there that we haven't really talked about a lot. And that's just, ops. I think
Yeah.
folks have gotten really, familiar and comfortable with things like markups and
Mhm.
sales ops and rev ops to be able to manage the tools and resources and why they need them. And the next kind of big thing, shift in momentum or shift in, that we're seeing in CS is also CS ops. And so you
Yeah.
also have to think about that of like one CS ops person or even half a CS ops person that maybe also be doing rev ops or markups or whatever it is,
Mhm.
what that can do in terms of adding efficiency for your customer success team by making those digital tools more effective. So again,
Mhm.
is one markups headcount going to help save you 3 or 4? I'm sorry, one CS ops headcount going to help you save 3 or 4 CSMs, just like a markups headcount is going to help you save in terms of, folks who are, creating all the different, content tools, resources you need for marketing. So I think that's also
Yeah.
really, really important to keep in mind. You've got to have, you've got to make that part of your DNA, that you have to understand what operations is, and that you've got to look at it not as an expense, but as something that's adding more efficiency to your business.
Absolutely. And it would take us way off on a tangent of all of the things like we're doing right now for our own business around customer operations that
Yeah.
I've got it tied into revenue operations, right? I mean, I've got
Yeah.
a chief
Yeah.
revenue officer who oversees, all like sales and customer success, right?
Yeah.
And our client services. And we consider that part and parcel. And I think I'm just learning that others are not thinking about it that way. And
Yeah.
they're just combining marketing and sales ops into rev ops and forgetting about the customer portion.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
Well, Scott, wow, we just blasted through a whole bunch
Blasted through
of
40 minutes. Yeah.
but thanks so much for joining me today,
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
and so good to catch up with you. If anyone listening wants to, just kind of connect with you, follow the work you're doing at Gainsight, where are the places and spaces they should go do that?
Yeah, I mean, follow me on or connect with me on LinkedIn. Love that, and then just gainsight.com. I mean, we have all kinds of tons of great content tools and resources. We have a great event every year that we do in the US and EMEA. Then we're bringing it on tour, different places called Pulse. We're doing cool things, different cities called Pulse Pizza Club, where we're kind of bringing it on the road and going and having pizza and beer, talking about customer success, but all kinds of fun stuff we're doing. And then there's just LinkedIn, which is also just a great way to catch up.
Perfect. Now, if people are craving those kinds of in-person experiences, like I know Pulse can provide, what type of person should go to Pulse? Like who are the people who should have that on their agenda?
Yeah, well, just like Gainsight has kind of like evolved, so is Pulse. Pulse used to be the place for customer success leaders to go. Now,
Yeah.
Pulse is the place for customer success, product, community. We have marketers come, but really kind of like those first three are really, the core areas, and a lot of revenue leaders. I mean, you went back and mentioned it yourself, like your CRO oversees these areas. CROs get a ton of value out of Pulse and some of these other, VPs of sales. Then we also have, so there's those leadership types of topics, but we also have tracks and events and all kinds of other things for CSMs, for CS ops folks, for product management leaders, for community leaders. I'm sorry, for community like leaders and practitioners. So it's kind of across the board in those three key areas. And then I would definitely add sales to that mix also.
Awesome. All right. Well, great. Everyone, make sure you have Pulse on your list
Yeah,
of potential events for 2023.
that's right.
Wonderful. Well, thanks everyone for listening. If you learned something today, please pay it forward by reading and reviewing us on whatever podcast listening platform of choice you have. Make it a great day, everyone.